Hi, everybody. I'm Kelly Parks of Comwaters Cloud Accounting. I'm out of Toronto and I do accounting for accountants, where I do the firm's internal books. I also help with process mapping and just all anything to take the overwhelm of running an accounting firm off your plate. And with me today is Jacob Schroeder of Ascend Consulting. And Jacob's got a really cool offering for accounting firms. That's your target market, right, Jacob? Right
That is,
now.
we're going to accounting firms and then to the client, and we serve clients and accounting firms both.
Okay. And Jacob is out of Ohio. And Jacob and I are lucky enough to see each other at lots of conferences. And we've got Intuit Connect Las Vegas 2025 coming up soon. So it'd be nice to see you. And we are on a panel there together.
We are super glad to have you as a moderator again. And always good to chat with Chase and Kristen. So looking
Yep.
forward to that.
Yeah, that's great. Okay. So why don't we get right into what it is that the service offering that you have and how it helps firms grow their advisory side.
Yeah, so Ascend Consulting, we're a holistic advisory firm, and we specialize in helping clients build a better future for them, their family, and their business. So everybody asks, what's holistic advisory mean? So when we talk holistic advisory, it's really about taking the business and personal and making sure that those align and we actually solve the client's needs and move them forward. And so we say we do that through 7 key areas of tax strategy. Here we're looking at a lot of lifetime tax rate minimization and where are we at over the lifetime. Capital allocation strategies, if we have an extra $100,000, do we distribute that and pay down the house? Does that get invested into which business? How does it get allocated? So we're looking across that personal and the business side when we think capital allocation there. CFO, this is the typical CFO services of forecasting, cash flow management. When we're partnering with firms, we do sometimes they do the CFO piece and we don't do it. But if you're a tax firm and needing the CFO piece for your client, we can handle that. If you're a tax firm and you don't need that, then we won't do the tax side. So we can kind of mix and match those. Business strategy, a lot of what's the vision for the company? How are they getting there? Where do we need to move forward to make that happen? And really dialing in on what the strategy is of the business. Risk management, where are we taking big risks at? How do we hedge against those in the business and in personal? Legacy and estate, what's the legacy you want to leave inside the business, as well as what's the legacy you want to leave individually? And then how do we craft to getting there? And then on the people side, are the right people in the right seats in the bus? And how do we move those forward, from compensation strategies to alignment to as we look to where that future growth is going, what are the gaps going to be, and how do we fill that from the people side? So that's kind of what we mean by holistic advisory. A little different than a lot of people's saying advisory and they're just talking CFO services. We're really looking at wrapping that advisory and rolling it out to the clients as a whole.
Yeah, I love that it includes the legacy and estate planning and the risk management.
Yeah, it's those things are critical. When we start talking tax strategy, if we don't know what the legacy is and we're looking long term, it's easy to get a tax strategy for today that doesn't fit the long term vision. Same thing even in the CFO or the people side. If the goal is to leave the business to the kids, those strategies are going to be different and how we invest are going to be different than if we only look at it in isolation.
And actually, you know what? It was nice. So I have a new client. I'm doing a cleanup for them of 2024 and 2025. And they came to me as a referral from friends of yours and mine. And it's super exciting. But I actually got to have a conversation with the owner. He's got multiple entities and they're in different countries. And I was like, ultimately, what do you want to do with this business? And he really wasn't sure yet, but as we started to noodle through it, it was bubbling a little more than he thought he had in his head. I love those kind of conversations.
Yeah, and it's important. There's so many layers there, and so often we see like, just tax strategy. It's like, how much tax do we save this year? Or even CFO, what's the forecast for this year and how do we make it happen? But so often we see that big picture missed. And I think many entrepreneurs haven't thought about it, but when you start to get them thinking about it, they realize, hey, I have some of this in my head. I need to craft some of it, but this really matters. And why have I been missing this conversation? So we love those discovery conversations. Just got to have one yesterday with a new client, spent 2 hours with them and you start peeling back those layers and like, oh yeah, that is what I
Well,
want, but I haven't factored that in anywhere.
right. Well, and running a business or building a business to sell it or to get financing, or to like to sell it privately, to sell it to PE, to do whatever you want to do. All of those things mean you have to run your business so differently than, let's say, basically at this point, I think I'm just running a business that's fun for lifestyle. I can ultimately do what I want. But if you're
Correct.
building a business to sell, you can't do what you want. You got to put all kinds of other things in place. Anyways, back to you, Jacob.
No, and that's exactly it. And so one of the things we do is we kind of have this holistic advisory when we have a new client come in, or we now are going to sell these directly. So if you have a client that just needs to understand where they're at, because with any client coming in, you kind of have to do this discovery, understand where they're at, what the gaps in their business are and things. So for that, we've developed our business insights report, which really goes through a business and helps us understand it. So we have multiple stages here, but we go through a couple hour discovery with them, understand what their business goals are, understand some notes about the business, like do they want to sell? What's their projections look like? Is owner compensation right? But then we take not their goals, but our whole discovery and grade their business across 8 key areas. And this lets us start determining what should be focused on and where it's at. So as we continue going through the report, we make sure we understand their organization structure and where everything's at in it. Then we do a high level valuation and also understand how much value they're leaving on the table. So in this case, if they were at all 5 stars, we believe that value gap, is about 3.46 million that they're just leaving on the table right now. So if they want to maximize shareholder value, we can start working with them to close the gaps that we've identified in the grading and create an additional 3.46 million of value without even creating revenue growth. So just by improving the operations of the business and where it's at. And
Um,
so
which which is so key, but it's not just because of selling; it's also for financing, right?
correct. It's financing, it's estate planning, whole, everything about it of where it's at. So yes, sale is a long term down the road, but obviously at this point too, if we improve the value of that, we're likely improving profit and cash distributions to you as well. So now we've improved cash flow. There's just so many things that improve, and we've relieved some of the stress on the business owner. Because as you relieve stress on a business owner, typically value grows because there's less key person risk. So there's just so many factors in there that it just improves the life of the business owner, and not all of that shows up in true dollar value, but we're also increasing the dollar value, enterprise value of that company.
Okay, cool.
So we also make sure we understand the industry and kind of go through. For some clients, this is really eye-opening as we go through. Other clients, it's like, yeah, I knew that, but it's great to understand that, like, yes, what I knew has been reaffirmed uh, in the industry. And so then we kind of show them how we came up with the grading that they did. So here's the financial scorecard. We benchmark them against industry averages. We then say, if you just got to industry averages, how much profit are you leaving on the table? So in this client's case, they're leaving $487,000 of profit on the table. If we could just get them to industry averages on their financials. So that impacted the valuation growth quite a bit because there's $487,000 of profit every year, changes value. And then we kind of go into the non-financial side and say, what are the categories and how do you score in the different categories of each section? So a little more tailored around, hey, yeah, that's weak, that's a little stronger around those categories. We then,
Uh,
yep.
Kelly has a question. Back on the benchmarking, where does the benchmarking information come from?
So we use IBIS World for that, which pulls largest probably database of private companies out there that we can find on the IBIS World side. So that is where we're pulling that benchmarking from across the large database, which allows us to have it across industries and not just on our current client base. So that allows it to be very impactful around the large range. And we do narrow it in because IBIS does to typically that client size. So they do have tiers within their benchmarking that we can pull from.
Okay, great. Thanks.
So once we get through the grading, we then actually produce a report back and kind of a game plan and say, here's what we would focus on each month for the next year to 2 years, that we can go and move the needle in improving your business. So, as we offer these reports just to, if you as a bookkeeper have a client you want this for, we would produce this back. You can decide, hey, we want to take some of these items and we want to help the client through those. And so that's a great like launching point for advisory of now we have a game plan of what needs done every month to move this business forward. How do we want to solve that? Is that having Ascend help them with it? Is that having you help them with it, right? As you've brought your client into this. But it just gives that roadmap and it also gives that client clarity of around what's going to be done in an advisory engagement. Because so often when we see advisory sold, it's just like, oh yeah, we'll meet with you every month. And there is no real game plan on what that has. And yes, having a conversation with you as another professional, super valuable to a client. Don't get me wrong there, like very valuable. But it's also like, yeah, I had the conversation, but what are we actually achieving in that? So having the roadmap and game plan really allows them to understand what's happening and moving forward from that standpoint.
Okay, cool. And so basically, you come in and you assist the accounting or bookkeeping firm with all of these benchmarking and reporting, and you put together this package so that the end customer has a real clear view of where they're going next and how they're going to do that.
Yeah, we come in just like another provider. So yes, you have to introduce us. It's going to be a separate engagement letter because we have those, but we work hand in hand there in a true partnership. And our goal, so often we hear partnerships talked and it's really just a referral relationship. No, we expect, our partners to be there and serve this client jointly with us. So, if we're just doing an insights report, they're going to be there in that discovery. They're going to be there, probably review that report before we present it back, and then be there as we present it back to the client and kind of go through it with them. And then if for some clients and those partners, they want us to do the ongoing advisory and through that whole holistic scope that we kind of talked about. And in those cases, we are jointly serving that client once again. So that bookkeeper is sitting on every one of our advisory calls with the client. And yeah, that means the bookkeeper's learning how to do our advisory. We understand that, but we also know most cases they're not going to want to do that whole service. But if they do, great. We're there to jointly serve a client with them. It's a true partnership, which means we're going to talk about the client outside of those client meetings, right? We're going to make sure we're on the same page before we walk into the client and give them an idea or a direction to go. The bookkeeper, tax accountant, whatever, that is, needs to be on the same page with us. So we present a unified front to the client and help move the client in the direction that they need to go in.
Okay, so a couple of things. We'll come back to price in a minute, but obviously, the key to any advisory is that the books are clean.
Correct.
So who's kind of responsible for the file review? You're doing a double take on it, I'm assuming.
Yeah, but if someone's going to become a partner with us, want to, especially if they're a bookkeeper or accountant, like obviously if they're a tax firm, we look at this a little different because then we have to go say, hey, do they have a clean set of books? But our clients, we do require that they have a clean set of books. So if we're working with a partner on the bookkeeping accounting side, we say we check and make sure they have a good quality control system in place to verify a good set of books. Now, once it comes to us, we do a high level review of the books just to say, are they right or not? Because too often we have gotten bad sets of books and then the advice we've given is bad. So we still do that double check and give feedback then. And, if it's a firm that has bookkeepers, obviously we give guidance back and like, hey, this needs fixed, this needs fixed. Clearly, if this is a firm and the owner and us have had a relationship, but then there's this bookkeeper, while we try to communicate with that bookkeeper and get things fixed, if things aren't getting fixed, then obviously we have to go to the leadership of that firm and say, hey, we really need this fixed. Because the
Yep.
very last thing I ever want to do is have to look at a client and say, your bookkeeper is not doing a good job. So we do everything possible to help coach that firm, move that firm along to where it needs to be. And many times it's just, oh yeah, that employee missed this quality control step, and now we're just being the quality control on top of the quality control system. So typically it's really fast to resolve, but we want to make sure that client's getting a good result together. So we ask our partners, you have to be willing to dive in the weeds with us and really serve that client in a good manner and being able to work through those challenges as they arise.
Okay, cool. Um, Now what about pricing? Talk to me, String Bean. What does the pricing look like?
Yeah, so for an insights report, if we were selling direct to a business owner, we're typically around $7,500 for that full insights report. If we're selling through a partner, so if a partner is selling it, we'll sell it to them for 4 grand. So significant discount there. Monthly ongoing services depends on the scope and complexity of the business that we're dealing with. Um, our average client right now is right about 7 grand a month that works with us. And so in that, we're meeting with that client twice a month at minimum, doing a lot of work outside of it as we kind of work through and help them solve those issues and build that roadmap out. And so that's typically twice a month. 7 grand is our average. We have clients up, minimum's about 4 grand at 15 grand, depending on complexity, right? So
Right.
there's a variation in between there, but that average comes out about 7 grand a month for the client.
Okay, great. Now, how does a firm get a hold of you? What does the whole starting to work with Jacob and Ascend process look like?
Yeah, so we typically book a call, which you can reach out to us. I'm on all the socials, Jacob Schroeder. You can send me an email, jacob@ascendllc.co. But that starts with there. We book a call. We kind of get to know one another and say, hey, does our firms align? Are they going to work together in serving a client in a good manner? And then from there, once we think it is, we kind of make sure we understand your quality control system. And then as long as that is sufficient, right? And saying, hey, it's there. If not, we'll say, hey, we think we would need this kind of quality control system to make sure we're getting good results back. But as long as those are good, then we say, here's some marketing material on how we serve clients and everything. And as you have that client, make the introduction. We'll come in jointly, talk to that client with you, kind of show them what's possible and give that proposal back. And obviously, before we give that proposal back, we would discuss that proposal with you, make sure things are on the same page. And then once we start serving that client together, it's diving right into discovery with them and a couple hour call. We do have some bookkeepers that say, I don't want to be on every call. Like I just don't have that time commitment. And that's perfectly fine. In those cases, we just make sure they get the call transcripts. And so they do have that and are aware of what's happening. And if there's any major items that are going to impact them, we recap them and send them out. But that's kind of how that flow goes. So it typically starts with booking a call for us to just say, hey, are we a good fit or not?
Okay, great. Shameless plug. I clean up books. So although generally my niche is accounting the internal books for accounting firms, like their own books, I do clean up client files on behalf of accounting firms as well. So if somebody needs a file cleaned up, call Kelly.
which
And
is which is great because we've quoted some new clients coming in. Like it's like, oh yeah, they need this advisory service, but like they also need this massive cleanup, and we don't have capacity to get the cleanup
yeah,
done and do the monthly ongoing as well as attend a call with the advisory side. So having someone like you in the back pocket be like, well, let's have Kelly do the cleanup. You start going the monthly ongoing, like keep things bills paid, everything else in the meantime,
right.
and then we'll start the advisory so we can close that gap and really get them moving forward to where they need to be in a little faster and quicker.
Yeah. Okay, great. Okay, so thank you.
No, thank
This
you.
show
It was great
this
talking with
show's
you, kind of showing you what
cool.
we're doing, and would love to work with you guys. So,
Yeah, well, and the thing for accounting firms is there's so much chatter about the advisory work, but a lot of them don't know what it is. A lot of them really don't want to do it, but they want that service provided for their clients. They don't know where to find it. They don't really even know, what a lot of this means. So there you are. There's Jacob and
yeah,
Ascend.
that's here's what a holistic advisory is. It can be more than just CFO. Don't shoehorn yourself in. Don't feel like you have to go there because your clients just need it, even though you don't want to do it. It's a
Right,
good way to partner with it, allow you to focus on what you love doing, and
right.
let us focus on what we love doing, which is doing the holistic advisory work. So,
Well, thank you, Jacob. I appreciate your time today.
thank
And
you.
yeah, and I will see you in a month and a half, whatever it is,
Yes.
October,
Whenever connect is. Hope to see some of the
whenever
other
the
people
next is.
that watch this that
Yeah,
into connect to. It's always a great time.
yeah,
Uh, Kelly and I met through conferences, so I always encourage people to make sure they attend and go to them. They're great resources. You get to meet other amazing people at them. So
you really do. Yeah, for sure. It brings social media to life, right?
that's right.
Yeah.
All
Okay,
right.
great.
Thanks, Kelly.
Thanks, Jacob.